March 7th, 2017, 9 a.m., the Central Intelligence Agency went blind. In an instant, the agency's ability to spy on terrorists, foreign governments, and adversaries around the globe evaporated. It wasn't a missile strike or a traditional military invasion. It was a digital catastrophe. WikiLeaks, the organization infamous for exposing state secrets, published a massive trove of documents they called Vault 7. It was the largest loss of classified data in the history of the American intelligence community. They called the first batch Year Zero. It contained over 8,700 documents and files, a complete library of the CIA's top-secret hacking tools. These weren't just reports. These were cyber weapons, tools that could turn a Samsung Smart TV into a listening device even when it appeared to be off. Tools that could hijack the operating systems of iPhones, Androids, and Windows computers. In a matter of seconds, weapons that cost American taxpayers billions of dollars to develop were dumped onto the public internet, available to anyone, including America's enemies. The most terrifying part for the CIA wasn't just the leak itself. It was the realization that their fortress had been breached from the inside. The call was coming from inside the house, and the man holding the phone was about to lead the FBI on a hunt into the darkest corners of the human mind. March 1st, 2016, Langley, Virginia. To understand how the world's most sophisticated spy agency lost its crown jewels, you have to look inside the Center for Cyber Intelligence, specifically the Operations Support Branch, or OSB. To the outside world, Langley is a fortress of discipline and shadow, but inside the OSB, the culture was rotting. Investigators and defense attorneys would later describe the environment not as a high-security bunker, but as a college dorm or a frat house. The coders and engineers charged with building the nation's cyber arsenal spent their days shooting Nerf guns at each other and pulling juvenile pranks. In this environment, security became a joke. The network holding these devastating weapons, known as DevLAN, was supposed to be an air-gapped fortress, impenetrable to the outside world. But inside, any basic digital hygiene was non-existent. The root password for the main development server wasn't a complex rotating key. It was the phrase, "My Sweet Summer." Even worse, the password for the Confluence server, which hosted the manuals for these hacking tools, was simply 123A B C D E F. These passwords were communal knowledge, often written on whiteboards for anyone to see. In the corner of this chaotic office sat Joshua Schulte. He was a brilliant coder, known by the nickname Voldemort, or the nuclear option, because of his tendency to go scorched earth when things didn't go his way. Schulte believed he was the smartest person in the room, a god among insects. But he was also deeply unhappy. Schulte was locked in a vicious, escalating feud with a colleague known only as a mole. It started with professional disagreements, but quickly turned personal. Pranks turned into insults. Insults turned into harassment. It got so bad that Schulte filed a restraining order against a mole in state court, a move that stunned his superiors. He accused a mole of threatening to kill him, a claim the CIA's internal security investigated and found to be completely baseless. By the spring of 2016, CIA management had enough. They saw Schulte as a disruption. They revoked his administrator privileges and moved him to a different branch, hoping to cool the tension. They thought stripping his access would solve the problem. They were wrong. They had just backed a narcissist into a corner. On the evening of April 20th, 2016, the OSB office was largely empty. Schulte was supposed to be locked out of the core systems. He had been transferred. But in a system as broken as DevLAN, doors are rarely truly locked. Schulte sat at his workstation, seething. He had secretly created a backup administrator session days earlier, a digital backdoor he kept for himself just in case. At 5:35 p.m., he executed his plan. He didn't just sneak in, he used the command sudo to grant himself the keys to the kingdom. He didn't grab random files. He targeted a specific backup file of the Atlassian Confluence server. He chose a backup from March 3rd. This date was significant. March 3rd was the day Schulte realized the agency was siding with Amel and that his time at the OSB was ending. This wasn't just theft, and it was a receipt for his grievance. The transfer began. 54 gigabytes of data. The entirety of the CIA's hacking history, source code, and user manuals flowed from the secure server to Schulte's workstation, and then to his personal devices. But stealing the files was only half the crime. Schulte knew he had to cover his tracks. For the next hour, he meticulously ran commands to scrub the system. He deleted log after log, erasing the digital footprints of his activity. In a network that didn't have robust real-time monitoring, he was a ghost wiping away footprints in the sand. By the time he walked out of the building, he carried the power to dismantle the CIA's cyber operations in his pocket. March 7, 2017. The Internet. Nearly a year passed. Schulte left the CIA and moved to New York City to work for a private tech company. The CIA had no idea their secrets were gone. They continued to use the compromised tools in operations around the world, completely unaware that they were exposed. Then came the tweet from WikiLeaks. They released the password to the encrypted archive, splinter it into 1,000 pieces, and scat terror. It's into the winds. The documents revealed the terrifying scope of the CIA's capabilities. There was Weeping Angel, a tool co-developed with British intelligence that could hack Samsung Smart TVs, placing them in a fake-off mode where they recorded conversations in the room while appearing to be powered down. There was Umbrage, a library of attack techniques stolen from other hackers, Russian, Chinese, and Iranian. The CIA used these to mask their own attacks, leaving behind digital fingerprints that would frame other nations for their operations. There was Brutal Kangaroo, designed to infect air-gapped computers via USB drives, and Sonic Screwdriver, which could hijack Apple computers through their Thunderbolt ports. The release was a catastrophe. The CIA's digital Pearl Harbor had arrived. Intelligence operations against terrorists and state adversaries went dark instantly. The agency had to pull agents and tools from the field. The damage was incalculable. March 15, 2017. New York City. The investigation began immediately. The FBI and CIA forensics teams scrambled to find the leak. They quickly zeroed in on a critical detail. The data WikiLeaks published matched that specific backup from March 3, 2016. This was Schulte's mistake. Only a handful of people had access to that specific file during the window it was created and stolen. And among them, only one man had a motive burning hot enough to torch the agency. The man who called himself the nuclear option. On March 15, 2017, the FBI raided Schulte's apartment in New York City. They expected to find a disgruntled leaker. What they found was a digital fortress. Schulte's personal computer was locked behind 3 layers of heavy encryption. He had built a system designed to keep out the entire U.S. government. It took months for the FBI to crack it, eventually succeeding only by using passwords found on his cell phone. When the agents finally unlocked the encrypted container, the mood in the room shifted from professional determination to horror. They found the classified CIA materials, confirming he was the leaker. But they found something else. Schulte had been hoarding a massive collection of disturbing material. The container held tens of thousands of images and videos of child sexual abuse. The content was described in court as sadistic and torture-based, involving infants and toddlers. Schulte wasn't just a traitor or a whistleblower acting on conscience. He was a predator. The FBI arrested him initially not for the leaks, but for the possession of this horrific material, while they built the espionage case against him. 2018 to 2023. Metropolitan Correctional Center. You might think being locked in the Metropolitan Correctional Center, one of the toughest federal jails in America, would stop him. It didn't. From behind bars, Schulte declared what he called an information war on the United States. He smuggled contraband smartphones into his cell. He set up encrypted email accounts and social media profiles. He drafted tweets and press releases, trying to leak even more classified information to reporters. He wrote a manifesto in his prison notebook. His goal wasn't just freedom, it was destruction. He wrote that he wanted to break diplomatic relations, close embassies, and end U.S. occupation across the world. He was willing to burn down the entire intelligence apparatus of his country simply to spite the prosecutors trying to convict him. His first trial in 2020 ended in a mistrial on the most serious espionage counts. The jury deadlocked. Schulte's defense team, led by brilliant lawyers, managed to argue that the CIA's network was so insecure, so full of my sweet summer passwords and Nerf gun fights, that anyone could have stolen the files. But the government didn't give up. In 2022, Schulte faced a retrial. This time, he chose to represent himself. He stood in court, wearing a suit that didn't fit, arguing with the judge and cross-examining his former CIA colleagues with the same arrogance that had alienated them years before. He thought he could outsmart the system one last time. He failed. The jury convicted him on all counts: espionage, hacking, contempt of court, and making false statements. A year later, in a separate trial, he was convicted for the child sexual abuse material. On February 1st, 2024, the final accounting arrived. A federal judge sentenced Joshua Schulte to 40 years in prison. It was the longest sentence ever handed down for a media leak in U.S. history. The judge described Schulte's crimes as a digital Pearl Harbor. Schulte showed no remorse. He had wanted to be remembered as a mastermind, a digital Edward Snowden. Instead, he was revealed as a narcissist and a predator who destroyed national security to settle a petty workplace grudge. The CIA has since rebuilt its walls. They claim to have moved to zero-trust architectures, where no single password can unlock the kingdom. But the damage is done. The tools Schulte stole are out there, in the wild, permanently. The code he released is now part of the arsenal of every hacker and hostile nation on Earth. Joshua Schulte is now just a number in a federal prison, but the secrets he unleashed will haunt the digital world for decades to come.